Welcome back, everyone. Today we are going to talk about an extreme form of capital punishment known as death by 1,000 cuts, otherwise known as Linky, which was used in Imperial China. It's something that you might have heard of before. You might have seen a movie scene like this one from Kill Bill, or maybe in another movie or TV show. But in reality, it was much more gruesome than any movie or TV scene. Death by 1,000 cuts was not just a method of execution. It was psychological warfare, spiritual annihilation, and pure human cruelty all rolled into one. Used in Imperial China for centuries, this punishment was reserved for the most heinous crimes: high treason, patricide, mass murder, or betrayal of the emperor. But it wasn't about quick justice. Linky wasn't meant to kill someone fast, it was designed to make them slowly, piece by piece, until death became a mercy. The condemned would be tied to a wooden frame in the public square, sometimes drugged with opium to keep them conscious longer. Then the executioner would begin first slicing off the flesh in small pieces: the cheeks, the ears, the chest. Not deep cuts, no, just enough to flay. The goal wasn't to kill right away, but to humiliate, to torture, and to desecrate. One cut at a time, hundreds of them. The crowd would often watch in eerie silence, others cheering or weeping, depending on the crime. In a world where saving face and spiritual integrity were everything, Linky didn't just kill the body, it destroyed the soul. According to Confucian beliefs, a person's body was a sacred gift from their ancestors. Mutilation meant shame in this life and the next. Linky took that to the extreme. It was death by disgrace. The punishment was first recorded as early as the 10th century and remained in use until the early 1900s. Yes, that recently. In one infamous case from 1905, a man named Fu Chuli was sentenced to Linky for murdering his master. French soldiers in China at the time photographed the entire process, and those gruesome images became some of the earliest photo documentation of real human torture in history, haunting and unforgettable. They show a man with flesh peeled from his chest, arms removed, still conscious, staring at the camera in agony and confusion. Some say the executioners could prolong death for hours, even days, depending on their skill. They knew just how to cut what arteries to avoid, how to bleed someone slowly, and how to keep the victim alive through dozens or hundreds of slashes. Sometimes, when the crowd grew restless or mercy finally arrived, the executioner would land a final blow to the heart or neck to end it all. But by then, the damage, physical, emotional, and symbolic, was complete. And here's the chilling part: Linky wasn't just about punishment. It was also a performance, a public lesson. This is what happens to those who defy the emperor. It whispered. It was state-sponsored terror made flesh. In a world without mass media, the mangled body served as the message. Families of the condemned could suffer too. In some cases, their names would be stricken from records. They'd be banned from burial in ancestral tombs, and because the body had been dismembered, traditional burial rites were impossible, denying the dead peace in the afterlife. There were no martyrs in Linky, only warnings. The Western world, when it learned of Linky, was horrified. Missionaries and journalists described it as barbaric, a symbol of everything they thought was wrong with Eastern despotism. But the reality is more complex. Linky wasn't unique in its cruelty. Europe had its own nightmares: drawing and quartering, the rack, burning at the stake. But what made Linky stand out was its surgical precision, its slow inevitability, and its deep spiritual violation. It was the art of death stretched to its limits. In time, reformers in China recognized the horror. In 1905, Emperor Guangxu officially banned Linky, marking the end of one of history's most dreadful chapters. But even today, the phrase death by 1,000 cuts survives not just as a metaphor for slow destruction, but as a real reminder of how far humans can go when justice turns into spectacle and punishment becomes performance. The whole process was quite elaborate and took place in several stages. The first stage was called receiving the sentence. This was the moment when the condemned was told of their fate. Often this would be done in public, humiliating them and striking fear into the hearts of onlookers. The second stage was preparation, both by the authorities and the condemned. The authorities would make sure everything was in order for the execution. The crowd secured, the execution ground clean, the tools sharpened and ready. Meanwhile, the condemned would prepare themselves mentally and physically. This might include prayer, eating a last meal, or simply enduring the final moments of captivity. Stage 3 was the procession to the execution ground. This was a public display meant to reinforce the severity of the punishment and serve as a warning to others. The condemned would be paraded through the streets, sometimes accompanied by musicians playing mournful songs, others chanting or shouting. The final moments before the execution were often filled with tension, anticipation, and sometimes theatrics. The condemned might confess their crimes, plead for mercy, or defiantly proclaim their innocence. The executioner would play a crucial role in this stage, ensuring the condemned understood their fate and any final rituals or confessions were carried out properly. The actual execution was carried out over several hours, involving several people. Someone would read out the sentence while the executioner secured the victim onto the execution rack. A scribe would record the details of the punishment, including the number of cuts. A guri or flag bearer would hold up a red cloth to cover the victim's face. Though this wasn't always the case and many victims died with their faces exposed. Staring into the crowd, the assistant executioner would wield a wooden hammer, ensuring each strike was as effective as possible. Medical experts believe that Linky might not have killed instantly, but prolonged over several hours. It would have resulted in severe blood loss and eventual exsanguination. After the physical aspect of the punishment was completed, the victim's head would be severed. This was considered the final and most crucial step of Linky, ensuring the complete severance of the body and soul. The head would be displayed as a warning to others, sometimes impaled on a pike or hung from a tower. The body would be chopped into pieces and disposed of appropriately, depending on the social status of the convict. For example, common criminals might have their remains buried in a mass grave, while elites might receive a more lavish burial. Today, we remember Linky not just as a historical event, but as a warning. It reminds us of the depths of human cruelty and the lengths to which power can corrupt. As we learn about punishments like Linky, we should ask ourselves how we can prevent such horrors from repeating themselves. Moreover, understanding different cultures' practices, including their judicial systems, broadens our perspective and fosters empathy. While Linky may seem barbaric to us now, it was once a part of Chinese culture and history. By learning about it, we pay respect to the victims and survivors and acknowledge the complexities of our shared human history. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, please subscribe so you won't miss any new videos. Thanks for watching. Until next time.